Now that you've gotten the proportions checked and hopefully you've responded to the feedback left on your slide, we can go ahead and start to work on the features. And you can see I'm kind of drawing again with the blending stump, but now I'm switching a little bit to the pencil. And that's because I still want to try going light. And the trickiest thing about this drawing is going to be those features because they are kind of at a slant. And for most of you, the features, in fact, for all of you, the features are going to be more on one side than the other, which means that one set of features will be smaller and then the other set will be longer. And they're also kind of at an angle if the head is tilted. Like in this case, the head is tilted, therefore the features are also tilted. So I'm going with the shape of the eye, and my drawing is to the left of where I am working, but my eyes are always going back and forth from looking at the picture to looking at the actual drawing in front of me. In this particular drawing, I can see a kind of a line for the edge of the nose there. So it's actually a much stronger line than it would be if I were looking at the face from the front. But I'm still not going to draw it heavy. I'm drawing it super light. And you want to curve that tip of the nose so it doesn't end up looking like a beak rather than a nose. And on this model, I can only see one nostril, so I will eventually put in that one nostril there. And you do want to look at the shape of the nose and look at the tip in particular and look at the distance between the tip of the nose and the side of the cheek. You want to gauge that distance correctly because oftentimes on the 3/4, the nose will actually be farther over to the cheek than you think it is. So you're always judging distances in art. And here's that nostril, getting that in place. And it looks like I made it a little bit too open, which is why it's great to go light. That way you can always shift things around. At this stage, I always have like an eraser nearby so I can grab it quickly and erase up. And I do cite the angles of the nose. I haven't yet drawn a vertical axis cutting the face in half vertically, but I am going to draw a little line that is the vertical axis really below the nose so I can tell where the Cupid's bow, where the middle of the lips is going to go. So you can see I drew a line straight down, almost looks like she's got like a cat lip there, but I'm going to erase that later. That's why it's so light. It's there so I can figure out where the middle of the mouth is, and that's really important because I need to place that V, that Cupid's bow on the top lip, and kind of in the where the two lips meet too, there's like this undulation, there's this bump that occurs, and I want to make sure I place that correctly. I'm going to go ahead and draw the upper and bottom lip so I can start to judge to see if my distances are correct. And again, you're going to have to look really closely at the right side of the mouth and compare it to the left side because they are going to look different. And you can see I'm drawing with that blending stump as well as the pencil. I'm going back and forth with those tools. And the left side of the mouth, I can see it's taller too, as well as longer. Remember, this is the hardest pose. It's such a challenge. So I'm sighting the angle of the eyes. So I'm doing angular transfer there, which means I'm holding up my pencil at that angle of the eye and freezing or locking my arm at that angle so I can transfer it over to my drawing. And make sure the eye that is closest to you, to the viewer, is larger. It has to be longer and a little bit more open than the one that's farther away. And it can also depend on which of the poses you're doing. On some, it'll be more exaggerated, but it should be true of all, that the eye closest to you should be bigger. Here's what it looks like if I zoom out, so you can see my photo reference there to the left. And you can see that's what I'm actually doing. That's an angular transfer, where I'm holding my pencil up there to the angle of the eyebrow, and I'm just locking my arm at that angle to transfer it onto my paper. So there it is again, I'm double checking. I usually double check everything. She's kind of got a unique brow arch, so I want to make sure I get that correctly. The eyebrow on her right eye is shortened, and that may be true of yours too. So I just have to take that into consideration, that I may not see the bend in the eyebrow. That may just be going kind of at an angle and not bending at all. And remember, I'm not looking necessarily for a perfect likeness. It doesn't have to look exactly like the model, but I am looking for accurate proportion. If the head's tilted, I'd like you to have yours tilted as well. At this stage, you should have the eyes in place, the nose, the lips, and the back of her collar and arm and shoulder. Same thing if you're working on a different model. You want to include a little bit of the shoulders and chest, just a little bit, and then the head and the gesture of the hair if you haven't done so already. We're nearly to the point where I want you to stop and submit for feedback, but we're going to do a couple little things, and you're going to do this lightly. It is so important that you do it lightly, but we're going to get in where the iris is going to go, and you're going to shade in the whole thing. So do this super light, and it's just a gesture of the eyes. We're not trying to outline too much, or you're not trying to outline too much at this phase. You're just going to see how it looks with the iris in place and a little bit of shading on those features. You want to look in places like the eye socket, at the bottom of the nose. Look for some shadow areas within the features only. And this can be tricky to do. Like right now, her iris is looking way too huge. So I just went over that upper lid there where the eyelashes go on that left eye to help define it a little bit more. And then I'm going to give the brow just a little bit of tone. And tone just means light shading. So I'm just going to give it a light shade, even though I know it's probably going to go darker later. Okay, so I'll just speed this up for you a little bit. That doesn't mean you should go faster. It just means it's in time lapse, so you don't have to sit and watch me do each little stroke. On this model, her hair kind of falls right across her face. So I'm going to have to move that over actually even more, it looks like. But I'm also looking at that area right around her eye socket, like I mentioned before. I don't want to go too dark though. I want her eyebrows to read as darker than that shadow in the eye socket. This is about as far as I want you to go today. So you're going to actually draw the features lightly. Don't outline too heavy. You don't want the eyebrows or the lips to be too heavily outlined. Give light shading to the eyes, eyebrows, and maybe the eye socket, but no more shading other than that. Just stick to those things and then submit for feedback on the features and on the shading on the eyes. And by the way, the eyes are just a start on the shading. We're going to layer on to the shading as well.